I think ready na po talaga tayo for our open forum, no, Miss
Oh,
Tessa. So,
yeah. Oh, all right. So, Maribeth, now it's time to open the floor to hear some of the thoughts, questions, reactions, and reflections of our in Zoom and on Facebook live stream. Please, just raise um, and then if you want, you can put also your reactions on Zoom, on I think the chat group. And those who will be raising their hands will be called. Kindly introduce yourself and clearly state your question and to whom it is directed. Or you can also, as I've said, type your questions or comments in the chat box, and Marian and I will gladly read it for you. So rest assured that we will try to entertain as many questions and participants as time permits, following a first come first serve basis. So in the interest of time, for those that won't get to entertain or give their questions or reactions, um, you can channel this directly to our resource speakers. Okay, so let's start. Shall we?
right. Before anything po pala, I believe ang representative po natin sa open forum for Father Cabillas is Miss Carmen Alvero po. So the questions for Father will be answered by Miss Carmen. All right, Dr. Galang, you're recognized po.
Good afternoon, everyone. Since I don't see other hands yet raised, let me be the first. Well, I really have been always appreciating EMB as the watchdog of our environment for the Philippines. And EMB has been a partner in many of our work, in much of our work in advocating for environmental integrity. And I'm glad to see that the assistant in EMB is such a young, boyish-looking lawyer. We need more young people to be working on the environment. I would like to ask him, in the environmental impact assessment law, do you also look at the impact of technologies, not just the individual or specific project? For example, if you're going to put up a nuclear power plant in somewhere, let's say in Pangasinan, uh, even before identifying the company, I mean, even before there's a specific project, do you make the impact assessment as a technology? We're concerned about nuclear energy, reclamation, and waste to energy incineration, which we believe pose more dangers than benefits. And considering that, just like in any environmental impact assessment, we look at the alternatives. There are so many better alternatives for these technologies. For nuclear, we have renewable energy. The Philippines is awash with the renewable energy. For waste to energy incineration, we have our beautiful ecological solid waste management, which which is really an ideal law. It needs though in proper implementation and enforcement. While with reclamation, we feel that it is really going against nature because it will affect our coastal areas, the sea, ocean currents, which we need for our biodiversity and for marine food supply. So I know that you're the watchdog, and maybe is the energy developed in the energy department, which is proposing these nuclear energy, waste to energy incineration. And as far as reclamation, is the reclamation authority. I know that it is coming from them, but you are the watchdog that these technologies do not impact negatively on the environment. So, do you have a process whereby you evaluate the technologies by themselves, not just specific projects? And by the way, yung waste to energy incineration is really against the Clean Air Act, because there's really a provision there which says that cannot be incinerated for energy production. And of course, the spirit also goes against the spirit of the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act, which is the circular economy. But when you burn waste, it's not circular. It's a one-way thing. So, can I have your thoughts on this? Our resource person from END.
Can I answer directly, ma'am?
Calvo?
Yeah, Mr.
Yes. Thank you,
Calvo.
ma'am Galang. Thank you so much for those questions. I think we really need to have a conversation about this in order to clarify to people how EMB functions as a regulatory watchdog. You're correct. There are certain technologies, particularly nuclear. If you look at our EIA guidelines before, it does not includes new relatively new technologies. That's why when the Philatom law was passed, we immediately conducted extensive studies to provide identify policies and give it in the technical gaps on our environmental impact assessment to reflect nuclear technology as a whole. We have to provide for these policies first and guidelines, our checklist to checklist all environmental impacts of a nuclear project, not a specific nuclear project, but a nuclear energy project. Once we finalize those guidelines, policy guidelines, and the thresholds, and as necessarily as the study itself will have to reflect an impact study of any proposed project will have to reflect all those that we will identify on our ongoing policy making. That's the only time it will be applied to a specific project. Right now, we are supplementing these gaps from the law. I want to ensure the environmental impacts are identified. All environmental impacts are identified, and identify also the site criterion. This is very important. The siting criteria must be thoroughly considered, not just by the EMB but also MGB and other agencies. So those are things that we are currently doing because the law has already been passed, and we have to ensure that this technical environmental impact system is also updated to reflect that. Secondly, we're discussing about the reclamation. With the cumulative impact assessment allowed us to look at it to have a bigger picture of not just for individual projects but its cumulative impacts as a whole, how one reclamation project reflects another. So as in EMB wants also to ensure that the findings of the CIA is thoroughly being addressed by these projects, and we have been reviewing our environmental management their environmental management plans and their easy conditions to ensure that these findings and these effects and impacts are being addressed and mitigated by the projects, not just their individual impacts but rather their collective impacts also.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Attorney Calvo. Any follow-up, Dr. Gala?
Yeah, so if you have looked at the collective impacts of all the reclamation proposals in Manila Bay, what is your conclusion?
My personal conclusion, I'm sorry, I could just speak as not just a representative of the DNR, but in my personal capacity as a resource person here, I would say that there's there's a lot. There a project. The scale of reclamation will have a lot of impact in our coastal community. What's important that these impacts have been identified, and the activities that are being conducted should be thoroughly always be put in mind those impacts, especially on the coastal effects of siltation, stagnation of rivers, of the water bodies inside, the generation of the upland river systems of NCR, which flows out into Manila Bay. These studies cannot be ignored and must be really considered when we are updating or revising the environmental management plans po.
But you will allow it.
That I cannot say on my on my level po. Well, again, development is not just I cannot answer for approving or denying any projects on my level po, ma'am.
Thank you.
May I chime in?
Yes, go ahead, Agnes.
I think the root of the problem, as I can see from the explanation of the good assistant director, is yung sa policy level, di ba? Sa policy level, they adhere to whatever laws or policies have been issued and they do the AIA based on that. Maybe we can revive yung, kasi 10 years ago or even 15 years ago, there was a move to for the government through EMB to have this strategic EIA or technology EIA, 'di ba? Parang meron na talagang general assessment of the technology or a general assessment of yung especially kung may land use impact tayo, developments in the country, but hindi siya po natuloy eh. Pero maganda 'yon kasi it will also help EMB to be properly mandated and guided kasi ang dami kasing projects silang inaaral. Ang konti-konti nila and siguro kung merong ganong mandate or policy, better for everyone kasi magiging proactive tayo. As you said, Ma'am Doc Galang, technology level pa lang. Alam na ng country ano yung what will be good for us or not. And then,
Right.
yeah, mga ganon.
Yeah.
They call it strategic EIA sa ibang countries. Yeah.
So we should push
Yes,
for that.
Yes
that's a
po.
good recommendation. Talagang a general assessment na of the technology itself.
Yeah.
Para we can judge if it's really good for our country, no? So I think hopefully magawa natin 'yan, no? Attorney Calvo.
He will help
Baka
us.
yeah, at least pwedeng ma-recommend. Kasi tunay yun, no? If we just look into the impacts, parang tapos na yung bago tayo mag-react. But if we assess already the technology itself, medyo mas maganda yung parang preventive.
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
If I may chime in na po.
Okay.
Actually, at the passage pa lang ng bill itself or the drafting, those must be considered already in the discussions. Why when you pass a bill promoting something, you have to have an discussion on what are those impacts of that technology. Not just in social, economic, environmental, all those sectors, they must be a thorough discussion. And then we as a lawyer say once the law is passed, there's a presumption that it was discussed or this was already been thoroughly be vetted by our legislative representatives, knowing considering all factors before it was issued. Thank you po.
Yeah, very helpful yung technical support of DNR to emerging bills, no? The intention is there, okay, honest and good. Yung nga lang, kailangan ng technical lens, yan.
So are you involved, EMB? Is EMB involved in the crafting of laws like this?
We get invited po sa mga committees natin. We provide technical inputs, particularly on what are possible impacts of of a proposed project. Anong bang mga pollution na ma-generate? Ano ba ang measures that must be monitored? What we should be regulated? Yan po. We are invited in these committees and provide also the data that they require.
Maybe you can invite us so we can support you.
Hopefully po, na maganda yung pong legislative process na maraming nag-uusap kasi para it's just all sectors or all concerns are being discussed.
JL, you want to say something? You play something on the chat box. Well, he says, why hasn't the study on reclamation mentioned by the former DNR secretary been released? It hasn't been released yet. So,
Ah.
if he's not mistaken, bakit daw hindi pa na-release?
Again, those are outside po. I capacity to answer already as as a part just EMB as just an agency of the DNR. Everything would give it to the proper persons who has the authority to discuss those concerns po.
All right.
Alright po.
May isang-
Also, yes, Ms. Tessa.
Sige, meron yung naka-raise na hand. Mr. Manuel ba yun?
Parang JJ po yata yung kanyang name kanina, naka-raise po ng hand.
Good afternoon po.
Ayun po. Good afternoon, you are recognized po.
I would just like to ask po kung clear naman po yung boses ko.
Not
Sorry, can you repeat that po?
Clear na po yung boses ko? Okay na po?
Medyo muffled po.
Great lang po.
I-type niya sa chat.
Yes po, you can feel free to type it in the chat box po.
Sige. There's another question or a comment dito sa chat box natin from Mr. Ray Esguera. Would you want to speak about your comment or say it verbally?
Okay, well, the experience with the EIA system is that the proponent would hire a consultant. So that consultant would prepare the environmental impact statement. And in the end, the project gets justified that it should push through. So no matter what happens, in fact, in the history of EMB, the only project I recall that was not granted an ECC was a cement plant that was supposed to be established somewhere in Pangasinan. But after that, I haven't heard of any project that hasn't been issued an ECC. So the consultant hired is represented by the proponent. So there's really no check. The only check would be through the EIA review committee. However, sometimes it's quite late already. I think my suggestion eventually is this I discussed years ago with the former EMB director Marlito Cardenas. It should be a third party, or it should be EMB itself that would be preparing the environmental impact assessment, so that the interest of the environment and the public is protected, not necessarily the interest of the company. So that's about it. Thank you.
Yes, Attorney Calvo?
Well, yes,
want-
actually, personally, I'm from the region. Before I came here in the central office, I assure you, sir, there are many ECCs that does not even reach the stages of the review committee, that are even returned or denied because they fail to comply with the minimum requirements. Maybe I don't know about your experience, but maybe that was that was your experience on that area. And secondly po, yes, the consultant is the one that is being hired by the proponent, is hiring the consultant that will prepare the EIA statement. But that EIA statement will be vetted and reviewed also by not just the review committee, but also by the EMB before it could be even passed through a public hearing to ensure its requirement, and after the public hearing, it will be revetted again to ensure that the public hearing concerns raised during the public hearing is incorporated in the ECC and the EMP, or the Environmental Management Plan. There are third parties that conducts this EIA, and yes, they are being hired to conduct that. And what we're doing is also to ensure the quality of their EIS statements that are being prepared. Because when you prepare an EIS statement, you're also conducting baseline studies, getting air quality, water quality, and for the way I see it, for EMB to do all this prior for each project being applied, we would require substantial manpower and technical and financial support for us to conduct it individually. That's what I think when if we want the EMB to conduct the EIA for all proposed projects, they may in the end if they will pay us for to conduct that. It would be unfair for the government for us to be with the one paying for the conduct of those studies if they are the one proposing for the project. So the conduct that's why we give it to this EIA consultant and contracted accredited EIA preparers. But we are also monitoring its results or their submission statements on their project. That's that's how I see it on our part.
Yeah. Pero baka the company still pays, but there are accredited mga EIA assessors or talagang ano,
Yes po, there
accredited by EMB baka ganun. So that we know na the interest is really for the good of the country instead of for the good of the company. Anyway, this is a very interesting discussion.
yes, it is.
Okay, that's good that some recommendations are coming out. So
Yeah.
how about itong comment from sino ba to? Homer iPhone?
Tessa,
Yes.
government had exactly that proposal before Director Cardenas kay Manang Rachel Vasquez na time. The proposal of government to us or EMB to us when we were GOCC was, we will make our EMB people specialists. Then we'll look into the hundreds of EIAs we have reviewed and those na we have enough knowledge for years, kami na mismo yung gagawa ng impact assessment of that technology, and then those details that we need from the proponent, questionnaire na lang yon, fill in the blanks. Parang ganon. Sabi nila, para paulit-ulit din naman yung mga air quality modeling analysis, minsan paulit-ulit lang. Pero kami, may enough knowledge kami, kunyari on geothermal, kunyari on, meron silang sinite, ganito. So yun yung plan nila eh. So parang I remember that based on the proposal of the good gentleman. Kasi kung super expert na yung mga analyst ng government with the proper incentives and all, they can do, kagaya naman sinasabi ni ma'am, at as technology assessment or an infra assessment of a specific sector, and then hindi naman magbabago yung hahanapin sa iyo eh. Yung area, yung buffer zone, yung impact, kesa gagawa ng ang kapal-kapal na EIA na mamumula na yung mata nung magre-review, when in fact, the same parameters are needed. All they needed are the numbers and to validate those numbers. Parang ganon.
I may ma'am, thank you po for that kasi ang ganda rin yung evolution namin from when you started NPCC pa to na discussions and now EMB na siya. And right now, an analogy for that is now our IEE checklist that we have made for specific projects. You're right na may mga projects naman na pare-pareho lang talaga na yung mga set standards and ang dapat tingnan natin na impacts are similar. We have IEE checklist for specific projects up to a certain threshold in terms of production, number of heads, ganyan. Once it exceeds that, our IEE checklist thresholds that we say, it becomes already an EIS based. Doon na po tayo napupunta na sa mas more in-depth or higher level of assessment. Those are EIS based projects and our ECP, environmental critical projects. So, magandang ginawa namin is the IE checklist to, like you said, pare-pareho lang naman projects yan. So, we have the same findings or same identified risk and impacts for those types of projects. But we did that just for a certain threshold
Yeah,
so that we will ensure na mas malaki yung impact, mas malaki yung, mas in-depth yung analysis natin.
ang sinasuggest nung proponent is one notch higher. Yung hindi lang yung cut-off nyo na 50 megawatts or 100 or 3-story building, pero one notch higher siguro, and then focus on the due diligence. Diba? Due diligence. Kasi lastly, I have experience also having gone through 30 EIAs, also using consultant based on the ano. Yung ibang consultant nga cut and paste lang Minsan nagkakamali pa ng lagay ng ano biro mo air quality modeling, ika-cut and paste mo. Yan hindi namin tinanggap, no? Kasi may local circumstances yan. Pati yung pangalan ng kumpanya nandun pa. So yun yung mga problema rin sa ganyan, di ba? Salamat.
Another thing they can do is to have a checks and balance talaga sa mga so-called preparers and consultants na lumalabas lang na the EMB has a list of accredited consultants naman in our website. Those are we have either registered as EIA preparers. At least those can be accountable if the one of our concerns also is the proponent should also raise those issues na si consultant X hindi niya ginawa or pinaan lang. So we will also be aware that they have also may ginagawang ano rin na unfavorable kasi it's putting the EIS system into bad light. The EIS system should have been this tool that will allow the project to say, oh, ito yung problema sa project na to. But because of other intent just to get the project going, they do not really consider it. So, this is a good collaboration between the project proponent and also the EMB to ensure that this pro-planning activity will not be used or abused in a sense.
Oo, na-report namin na blacklist na.
Yeah, maganda po. That's a good collaboration that we kasi para mawala din sila. At they're making ECC, putting ECC in a bad light if they do because of those actions.
JL, would you want to add? You've placed some comments. You're muted.
None daw po, sabi ni Sir JL. I think, Dr. Galang, before we read po, kasi nag-send na po si Mr. JJ Manuel ng kanyang question. Let us, baka may gusto pa po i-add si Dr. Galang.
No,
Yes,
go ahead
Dr.
with the
Galang.
others first.
Okay po, sige po. So, ayun po, nagsend na po si Sir JJ Manuel Alisla sa chat box. Just would like to ask po if mayroon po bang data ang EMB on the status of sanitary landfill in the country and how they assess the landfill if it's still capable of receiving volume of waste in covered vicinity. Salamat po. Yun po.
Yun po, I'd like to answer in a general sense in anticipation of future questions in this matter. The EMB has a online database in their website identifying po yung mga operational sanitary landfills natin in the country. You could visit it in our dashboard in the EMB website. And in the assessing the landfill, if its capacity to receive the volume, the environmental compliance certificate inputs the capacity there sa kanyang project description. And there's also an EMB environmental management plan that provides or the operational manual of the SSLF also provides kung ano ba yung daily tons per day na kanyang na accept and how long is the lifespan of that sanitary landfill. Yan po yung minomonitor natin sa regional offices natin and we are increasing or improving or adding monitoring activities natin particularly in their SLFs to ensure na hindi rin overcapacity or hindi proper yung waste disposal methods na or activities na ginagawa sa ating mga sanitary landfills. The key term should be sanitary. Dapat malinis yung landfill. It should not be open dumping. That's what we are monitoring po. But for the data on the status, you can see it in our website. Thank you po.
Okay. We have a question from Director Hannah, would you want to verbalize your question that you wrote here in our chat box? Sana si Director Hannah.
Si Director Hanima Saliclao. Ayan.
Hello. Hi, pleasant good afternoon. I am representing the Philippine Muslim Women Council. We are invited and I'm here to represent our president, Norhata Lonto.
You have a question?
Yes, I have. My question is, considering that if we will have a genuine existing climate policies in the national level, my question is, are there existing climate policies that mandate environmental greening measures, such as integrating land use planning into building permits and requiring each household, including those in urban housing projects, to plant or maintain a minimum of at least 4 trees?
Okay, and that's another question. I think Mr. Attorney Calvo.
Opo, I cannot really say in behalf of the CCS or DNR under other policies, particularly in land use, land management and forestry management. I could discuss in the level of EMB. We have policies already integrating disaster risk resilience integrating disaster risk resilience in climate in the ECC conditions. We also require for large projects to have a forest plan for planting trees, dependent on the type of project that they have. And but I cannot say if it's maintaining a minimum number, because they're sure required to submit a forestry plan, forest management plan, on how much they will be planting. I'm sorry for I cannot speak on behalf of our other bureaus, but that's the up to the limit as under the EMB I can say. Because maybe the other resource persons are more familiar on climate change policies. If we could add also.
I think Miss Agnes has something to add po.
Yung nakikita ko yung sa forest having interface with FMB and CPW dun sa ginagawa nila and having been involved in watershed operations, there are two ways to effectively monitor yung forest dun sa areas I saw in the chat. First, right now, digital. I know that there's a plan by the Diwata satellite of DOST to have real-time measurement of our forest. And outside Diwata, meron namang mga public programs where you can actually get the real-time status of a forest. As a matter of fact, Dr. David is already using it. In the past, the site will recommend where to plant yung National Greening Program. But I think during the time of Secretary Loizaga and then Sec Popo, they are dictating where are the real open areas where to plant because of this satellite imagery. On the biological parameter, based on international protocols, the best parameter for the state of health of the forest is the biodiversity gain. Yung physical kasi yung satellite But then, an increase in biodiversity is already an indication na optimum yung conditions doon in terms of the forest structure, in terms of the ecosystem services, in terms of the yung original composition, unaltered. So yun po, Director, yung current trend ngayon. Look for gain in biodiversity in terms of the species of plants and animals. Ultimately, siya yung dictate ng good health of a forest. Thank you po.
Thank you po. Actually, I am here in Marawi City, the southern part of Mindanao, and we have an existing lake Lanao. And one of my concern is the status of the forest surrounding the lake, considering that there are already existing cases that nagkaroon ng land flooding in the different parts because of the need for reforestation. Thank you po.
Okay.
If I may add na lang pa, ma'am,
Um,
you may also coordinate with the regional DNR office there because they also have they may have data on the status of the forest land coverage or health in along Lake Lanao. I suggest po to coordinate with our regional offices.
Thank you po.
Maglalabas din yata by April po ng status of Philippine Forest ang FMB. April 2025. April this year.
2026.
si Mr. Ray Esguerra also posted sa ating chat box where we can possibly view the solid waste management dashboard. So he placed there yung sites. So go to our chat box and you can see yung about our solid waste management. All right. Mr. Bondi Peña Flor has a comment. Would you want to
Yes
verbalize?
po.
Yes.
Well,
Afternoon.
yes.
Ayun, nabasa ko na rin, ma'am. I agree with the observations of Ma'am AC on the cut and paste ES documents. While the EMB has accredited registered DI preparers, most of them are registered because of the Padrino system. It's sad because our scientists from academic institutions are disregarded because they are not registered DI preparer. What are my thoughts on this po? Well, that's a good issue that I do not know of this Padrino system on the registering EIA preparers. But good to know that there's this happening. I'll check on how I really want to talk to you. If sana Sir Ben the floor, you could discuss to me how that Padrino system works because the registration is just the process of inputting your information in our system so that you could be registered and be recognized by us. If there is an incident of denying AIA preparers, especially from our capable scientists, I do not know what are their basis for denying this registration. And because I think the Padrino system, maybe you're referring to that there are cases where there are people are within or that are favoring or endorsing a specific EIA preparer over the other. Maybe that is the practice that you are implying about of this Padrino system. That's why when we here in the central, when the project applicants are asking for names of EIA preparers, we do not name a specific project preparer. We endorse them to get it from the registered EIA preparer to let them choose, let them pick among the list. We do not specifically say or we do not say a specific preparer or company to conduct the said project. Otherwise, again, that is a violation of the code of ethics of a government employee favoring the business of one over the other. That is, if there have been observations of that, that is grounds of having legal or the civil action against those that are doing those things. That's my thoughts on that.
Okay, interesting. Keep the dialogue going. Visit si Attorney Cabo. Okay. Dr. G, do you have a question?
Yes. Well, I wanted to give Attorney Calvo a rest. So I'll give the questions to first Agnes. First Philippine Holdings is a very environment focused company. You may or may not answer this question because you might think it's not ethical, but how do you think the business world is responding to the challenge of climate change and environmental issues? And if I may ask JL, thank you for your comprehensive review of the challenges that we face. How do you think we in Green Convergence, as a coalition and with our individual members, how can we help in meeting these challenges? So Agnes and JL, thank
Yes
you.
po. I'm ready to answer that naman po. From my personal observation, I feel that local industries, including global companies, um, while they fully understand the situation, including all the science behind it, definitely they've studied them. There is still this parang foot dragging on making the full action. Marami pa rin po na hanggang compliance lang, even if they know beyond that, maybe because of the cost also and because of the focus on profit. That's why in my own observation, no matter how painful, no, which we are also subjected to, governance and laws are the only ones that can compel them eh. Kaya if there are strict laws relative to climate change, although syempre mahirap i-comply, I welcome it. We welcome it personally. I have the clearance of my chairman because it's something that will be good for the company, for the country, and what is good for the country should be good for the company. Yun lang po yung ano ko, personal observation ko. We're not yet there as a sector, but there are things that we can do. And the way to really nudge them is through the regulations, diba?
Okay, thanks, Agnes. JL?
Okay, before anything else, I just like to raise 3 points, just so I just don't want to sound like I'm being generic in my answers. So, I think the first thing is I think we need to,
Yell a little louder,
uh,
please.
we need to remove this, we shouldn't be shy about, starting with, quote unquote, the little things. And what I mean by that is, I think a lot of people, when we talk about how to address these ecological issues, their tendency is to immediately think big. And while that's not, of course, a bad thing in itself, of course, it's a good thing. Because if we're talking about ecological action, we're always thinking about, you know, widespread impacts because of the urgency of the situation. But we also have to be pragmatic in a sense that not everyone's going to have the same resources, not everyone's going to have the same role specifically or starting point in terms of capacity. So just engaging with your LGU, for example, just check your LGU, for example. Do they have a local climate change action plan? Do they have a functioning local DRM plan? Are they actually using their DRM funds? Because the odds of not them actually fully using their DRM funds are higher than you think. And that's from the report of the Commission of Audit itself. And even starting from that kind of perspective will help because that's your starting point because that's closest to your home. Especially if you're living in a coastal area, if you're living somewhere close to a landslide prone area. Even just knowing that those plants exist in your communities matter. I think that's a very important point to start off. Secondly, is if you do have the opportunity to engage in a local, provincial, national, whatever scale in terms of decision making, just take advantage of it. Maximize your opportunity. Don't be shy to engage with your mayor or councilor or someone like that. Just because you see them on the news doesn't mean that you should be afraid to talk to them. And you need to be able to find as well, again, we need to be a bit pragmatic here in terms of, sometimes you got to try to assess what they're interested in and try to, that could be your point of entry in terms of directly engaging with them. And of course, it's a case-to-case basis because we know how it is in the Philippines. But given that we cannot deny that ecological action is becoming a more important and popular issue. And if you doubt that, please note that the second most highlighted news search item in the Philippines in 2024 is actually climate change. So that's enough evidence of its own that it's becoming really more mainstream. Just keep the momentum going. So that's the second point. And the final point I like to raise is, again, the corruption issue on the flood control. Of course, it's a bad thing in itself. If there's any silver lining to that, is that now you're seeing how another way to really mainstream the significance of ecological action. When was the last time that we have seen celebrities, for example, really be this outspoken about anything related to climate? You don't usually hear a lot of celebrities. Of course, their angle is corruption, but where is it based on? Flood control projects, which are intended to be climate related in any way. So that's how another opportunity to really connect the dots and try to gauge the interest of the people we want to reach out. And going back to what was mentioned earlier when we started this session, I think Marian said we need to share this session is happening, spread it to your friends, spread it to your networks. So that could be a way to do that. Just try to find something that makes it really relatable and hits that emotional resonance, that the technical discourse that concerns climate talks mostly fails a lot of times to really generate. I thank you.
Thank you, Agnes and JL, for those very enlightening answers.
Okay, I think I don't see any hands anymore, more comments. So would like to thank everyone for that productive exchange of thoughts and ideas. And we'd like to thank our resource speakers for enlightening us with your answers. Talaga, no? So before we continue, Marian, I think there are some announcements that you would want to make before we conclude today's Kamayan Forum. Take it
Yes,
away.
thank you, Ms. Tessa. It was indeed a very productive open forum, no? And overall, sana lang po talaga mag-progress na po tayo, not only this year, this year, but also in further years to come po. So before we proceed, I'll just drop a few quick announcements. Firstly, the GC Secretariat will be sharing the link to the evaluation form in the chat box, and it will also be flashed on screen. Is it already flashed? Ayan pa. Ating evaluation form and QR code. And please take a few minutes to fill it out. Your feedback means a lot to us as it helps us improve further Kamayan sessions. And for those requesting e-certificates of participation, a reminder that you must have actually been present in today's forum, not just pre-registered. And you must submit a completed evaluation form. We'd also like to invite you to become an official member of Green Convergence to stay engaged in activities such as our Kamayan sessions and many, many more. The registration link will also be shared in the chat box, and make sure to like and follow Green Convergence's Facebook page for more updates very soon. Lastly, we encourage everyone to be mindful of their carbon footprint. Use the Ako Ang Bukas Household GHG Calculator web app, where you can calculate your carbon footprint and find ways to reduce it. You can also be part of the bigger change by signing the Ako Ang Bukas pledge. Links will also be shared by our GC Secretariat in the chat box. Okay, back to you, Ms. Tessa.
Okay, thank you, Marian. To wrap up today's conversations and leave us with a clear way forward, we would like to invite the Assistant Corporate Secretary of Green Convergence, Ms. Graciela Castillo, to deliver the closing remarks. Take it away, Shella.
Makakalikasang hapon sa ating lahat. As we come to the close of today's Kamayan, one thing is clear. 2026 is no longer something we are preparing for. We are already living in it. The environmental challenges we face, climate risks, environmental degradation, and questions of accountability and responsibility are no longer distant or abstract. They are already shaping communities, livelihoods, and everyday decisions. Minsan kapag pinag-uusapan natin ng environment, parang ang bigat agad. Parang saan ba talaga magsisimula? Or ano ba ang dapat unahin? Those questions are valid. They reflect concern. They reflect care. What today reinforces is that environmental action has never been the work of one sector alone. Kagaya nga ng nabanggit na, shared obligation ito. It requires engagement across institutions, communities, and everyday choices. The work ahead is about learning more about issues, making informed decisions, taking responsibility within our own spheres, and continuing to act even when it gets really frustrating. Hindi ito laging mabilis at hindi rin palaging malinaw, but it is necessary. Before anything else, again, I'd like to extend our sincere thanks to our resource speakers, Ms. Agnes De Jesus of First Philippine Holdings, Sir J.L. Lago and Action Klima Pilipinas, Father Junito Cabilas of the Diocese of Greater Manila Area, and Attorney Arjun Calvo, Environmental Management Bureau. Maraming salamat for sharing your time, your perspectives, and your commitment to helping us confront environmental realities with honesty and responsibility. To everyone who joined us today on Zoom and on Facebook Live, maraming salamat po. Thank you for staying engaged, for contributing thoughtful questions, and for taking part in this conversation. Your presence reminds us that environmental issues continue to matter and deserve sustained attention. I would also like to acknowledge the people who work behind the scenes to make today's Kamayan possible. Maraming salamat. The invitation to join Green Convergence has already been shared, and I wish to echo it. Green Convergence remains a space for staying informed, staying engaged, and contributing to collective environmental action. As we move forward into 2026, may we do so with clarity, responsibility, and willingness to work together consistently and constructively. Again, maraming salamat. Ingat po tayong lahat, and we look forward to seeing you again at our next Kamayan para sa Kalikasan.
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Shella, for concluding this gathering rooted in shared responsibility and action. I think perfectly emphasized naman po yun ni Ms. Shella na we have to work collaboratively in reaching our goals environmentally, socially, ecologically, and everything with a Lee. So yes, back to you, Ms. Tessa.
Yes, thank you, Marian. Anyway, I think it has been a very productive exchange of ideas. We've discussed yung mga climate change challenges. And I think it challenges our development paradigm, no? Maybe we should look into nature-based ecological development, which we have somehow discussed. And we look forward to expanding this some more for our country. And there were some recommendations to look into yung general assessment of technologies, revive the proposed project on technical assessment, yung biodiversity is an indicator of the conditions of our ecosystems. So that is we can look into that. And then we need laws for companies actually to comply as much as possible, so that they will really go beyond compliance of our environmental laws. And then for the CSOs to look into the local plans and local action plans and the budget for DAA dun sa kanilang LGUs, and engage more with local officials. Okay, those are some recommendations. And so we'd like to thank everyone once again, to our resource speakers and to everyone who made this session possible. We'd like to remind everyone to be with us again in our next Kamayan Forum, which will be on February 20, 2026. And by now, I hope naka-calendar na lahat sa third Friday of the month ang ating Kamayan sessions. So see you all next month. This is Tessa Oliva, Green Convergence Executive Director, and with me is...
Marian Luisa Palo, Green Convergence's Media and Communications Officer. Hope to see you all again in February for another meaningful environmental discussion. Let us keep the conversation going, share what you've learned, invite others to be part of the movement, and together, let's build a greener and more sustainable future. Muli, maraming salamat at makakalikasang araw po sa ating lahat. Happy New Year!
Happy birthday, Marian.
Thank you,
Happy birthday.
Dr. Ga.
pala.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. God bless.